Chapter 7. You're not listening. Nobody listens anymore, and it's killing martial arts. Sure, that's a little hyperbolic, but we assert, not that over the top. Let us give you a couple touchstones to consider internally and externally that prove the point. It's easy to blame social media for the lack of attention span in today's society. All of the screens, the movies, the shorts, etc. And the blaming of that is fair. But what it's doing is exploiting an inherent aspect of the human mind, the attention to the shiny screen. We've thought about this attention to shiny screens phenomena. We're both pretty narrow in our focus on social media and use each platform for specific purposes, staying connected, finding and promoting content, even a little entertainment. But we don't have much in the way of spare time to waste, so we have to be selective. Kris enjoys a little bit of X, YouTube, and Facebook, but rarely spends time on TikTok, Instagram, and the rest. For Lawrence, it's primarily LinkedIn and YouTube. Kris wanted to see how dominant this shiny screen dynamic was. Let's go to a rarefied atmosphere, he thought. So, he decided to head out to the local Native American casino. It's a nice casino. He likes it. They have great shows. But let's make no mistake about it. There's a lot of screens in that place. Some of the screens are massive, many smaller, and they are peppered all over the place. It's not quite Vegas, but close. He did a walkthrough and started counting the screens as best he could while wandering through. Two things occurred to him. Number one was that he should stop counting. Two, he was engaging in suspicious behavior in an environment that frowns on unusual activities. So, he ended the experiment with no conclusion. You get the idea that blaming the casino screens and social media isn't a new story. These items play on the human mind, and we give them our attention. It's sort of a squirrel syndrome, you know. Squirrel? What were we talking about again? We've picked up a few quotes about selective observation focus from folks you've likely heard of. Let's begin with one from educator, author, speaker, and businessman Stephen Covey, the guy who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Yup, we're guilty of that. You are too, right? Frank Luntz, a famous communications consultant and political pollster, said, "We, as Americans and as humans, have very selective hearing and very selective memory. We only hear what we want to hear and disregard the rest." Eddie Van Halen, one of the world's greatest rock guitarists, said flat out, "I have selective hearing." Stephen Wright, stand-up comedian, actor, writer, and film producer, said, "No one is listening until you make a mistake, man." Counter those quotes with these. Journalist and author Krista Tippett, who said, "Listening is about being present, not about being quiet." Author, activist, and social entrepreneur Brian H. McGill said, "One of the sincerest forms of respect is actually listening to what another has to say." At risk of belaboring the point, let's go on. The Dalai Lama said, "When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know, but when you listen, you might learn something new." Finally, unfortunately, we are not sure who to attribute this quote to. Here's a great one. The biggest mistake by most human beings: listening half, understanding quarter, and telling double. If that came from you, you're a freaking genius. It's our nature to behave in this manner. And of course, we're telling you this because it damages our ability to be the best that we can be as martial artists and as humans. When we assert that nobody listens anymore, what we're really referring to is that perhaps 20% listen, while 80% are on broadcast, the old 80-20 rule. Here's an example of not listening in martial arts. "Okay, that's your style." Or, "We have always done it this way." Or, "That doesn't look like real," fill in the blank. Those sentiments shut down exploration, reinforcing dogmatic adherence to tradition, whether or not it's useful. Sure, sometimes the way we've always done things is good, it survived because it works, but not always. If we really want to learn and grow in our arts, we need to flip things around, be open-minded, explore. That's interesting. Tell me more. I'd like to understand. Or, how would you do this? Those are expansive questions, not statements designed to shut discussion down. When we're teaching, and someone comes up during a break and asks questions, we love that. They're not doing what everybody else is doing. They're on a different agenda. They're in that 20%, and we recognize it as such. Those are the folks most likely to succeed. But we also recognize that those questions mean we didn't do as good of a job as we needed to in order to explain what was going on. We owe it to students to get clarity for them. We have to do our best to make good on it. We've had many people come through the dojo from other styles and from across the world: Australia, England, South America, Chile, Japan, Canada, etc. When those martial artists with diverse experiences come into the dojo, more often than not, they're in that 20%. They ask questions. They explore. They want to know what they can learn. They're present in the moment, listening, not broadcasting. If you think that we're coming down from the mount with the tablets saying, "You should do this," well, yes, we are. Because you know why? We've both been horrific listeners in the past and paid the price for that lack of listening. Clearly, that's no epiphany. Everybody has. But at risk of reinforcing the obvious, and quote Stephen Covey once again, we should all seek first to understand before trying to be understood. Not just in our martial arts, but in all aspects of our lives. Take the moment and digest it. Find the gaps and fill those in your mind over what you're doing. You're going to find yourself making leaps on your ability to perform your martial arts. Yeah, it's going to get better, and you're going to get better than you were, and it's going to happen fast. So, get great at listening. It makes you better. It's really not all that difficult to become a great listener, but it does take effort. Start by facing the speaker and maintaining eye contact. That helps you focus and shows respect. Though with some cultures, it's better to look at the person rather than their eyes. Be attentive, but relaxed. That helps you remain present during the conversation. While listening to their words, try to picture what the other person is saying. Don't rehearse your response, but rather visualize what they mean, translating it into your own words. Try to wait for the speaker to pause before asking clarifying questions. That's not always possible, but it's better than interrupting, even if you're confused in most instances. When you do ask, use questions that are designed to assure understanding. And pay attention to what isn't said, to nonverbal cues, as much if not more than to what is said. Finally, if you don't agree, restate the other person's point in your own words before presenting your countervailing argument. In that fashion, you're showing respect for their perspective, which makes it easier for them to hear what you have to say in disagreement. This approach minimizes conflict while reinforcing dialogue. Takeaways. Lack of listening is damaging the practice of martial arts. Selective observation and focus hinder understanding and learning. Being present, actively listening, is crucial in martial arts and in life. Asking questions and seeking clarity shows a commitment to learning and leads to significant improvement. Quotes. I'm pretty smart myself. Smart enough to listen? I mean really listen to you. Anthony Starr, as Homelander from The Boys. The art of conversation lies in listening. Malcolm Forbes. Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you'd have preferred to talk. Doug Larson.